Hello and welcome back everyone to Nerdy Nekama. Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a long while, but I can say with so much happy feelings that I survived the first semester. Yay! So that means I have some time now and hopefully get a lot of work done for this channel because I'm really excited to be back here. And yeah, let's get started right back into it with Injured Foxes Part 2. I hope you will like this. Enjoy! Shinsuke? Atsumu, is that you? Aran had been snuggled up with Kiyomi in his arms, watching a movie while their boyfriends were out. They didn't expect them back for another hour or so, but it sounded like they came home early. He tried to get up and check, which earned him a dissatisfied grumble from the raven resting on his chest like the embodiment of an overgrown black cat he was. Aran smiled softly, barely managing to hide his laugh as the dark eyes glanced up at him, betrayal written all over them. The spiker could be so adorable and clingy under the right circumstances, and every time again it caused his heart to flutter. He leaned down to press a kiss to his forehead, causing the other to relax and using that chance to steal himself away. Sakusa huffed offended and let himself fall onto the pillows, which he visibly deemed beneath him, when his favorite pillow was right there. I'll be right back, I promise. Too late. I'll just cuddle with the blankets. They haven't betrayed me yet. Aran chuckled, and Sakusa demonstratively turned away from him. They both knew that once back, Kiyomi would use him as his personal heater again in a heartbeat. He was surprisingly rather cold most of the time, joking that it wasn't surprising a family like his only brought forth cold-blooded children. As such, every time they were alone, he was quick to cuddle up to whoever one of them was available, when his phobia allowed it, that was. Aran thought about bringing back Sakusa's favorite snack to earn back his favor as he descended the stairs when suddenly, everything seemed to freeze. Even his heartbeat seemed to momentarily come to a halt as he spotted Atsumu and Kita in the Ginkan. Everything else was forgotten, and he rushed towards them, only to forcefully come to a halt when Atsumu visibly flinched at the sudden motion. He proceeded more carefully, his heart barely lightening as the sitter allowed him to place his hand on the uninjured side of his face, before doing the same with Kita. What happened? Look, New tears gathered in Atsumu's eyes, and suddenly he was in Aran's arms. More and more cracks appeared on his heart as the broken, oddly distorted sobs rang next to his ear, and he was swift to pull him as tightly into the embrace as possible. Sumo, beloved, what happened to you? He gently let his hand soothe over his back while seeking Kita's eyes for answers. His right cheek had started swelling and a red mark remained growing on his jawline, yet Aran felt a hint of relief as he saw that his throat was absent of the same bruises tainting Atsumu's. There was a shudder that visibly ran through Kita's system and only served to worry Aran further, but then the silver-haired straightened his back. His tone was serious as he spoke. Can you bring him upstairs? I'll get the first aid kit. I'm not sure how much it'll realistically do, but I'm sure we have some painkillers and cooling compresses left. Aran nodded hesitantly. Atsumu turned half in his arms to glance at Kita, panic still reflected in his eyes, but the other gave him a shaky smile and left to fetch the items. The ace tried thinking of something to say, but came up empty-handed. He had only seen Atsumu this disheveled a handful of times given his usual confidence. Every time he did, he felt something in him break a little at the sight. Gently, he slung an arm around Atsumu's middle and urged him softly up the stairs in hopes a warm nest of blankets and the familiarity of their home could ease his panic a little. By the time they reached the bedroom, Kiyomi's faint pout had long been replaced by a concerned frown. His eyes widened as Atsumu came into view, and he automatically began tracing the bruises on his throat and cheek. His jaw set tight, and Aran could see his nails digging into the skin of his palm where he balled them into fists. Atsu. He called out to him softly, but Atsumu didn't return his gaze. He looked down as if ashamed. Still, the setter didn't object when Aran guided him to the bed. Before he could offer his reassurance, a low crash echoed from downstairs, and immediately he grew alert. I'll go check on Shinsuke. Do you want a tea? I could bring some on my way back. The blonde nodded hesitantly, but Aran didn't miss his worried glance as he threw in the direction of the door. They were the same as before when he looked at Kita, and the ace had the uncomfortable suspicion that the former captain was not as unscathed as he pretended to be. He took 2 steps at once when following his path downwards, while calling out for Kita. His heart was racing. He hadn't been able to process any of it yet, when he found the silver-haired hunched over by the kitchen counter, holding onto it for balance. Shinsuke, what's wrong? What hurts? He tried to answer, but struggled for breath and started coughing. To his feet lay the first aid kit, with some of its contents having spilled out to the floor around it. Quickly, Aran rushed over, stabilizing his partner and gently guiding him to sit down on one of the chairs at the kitchen table. He gathered up the supplies on it beside him, before inspecting him more closely, relieved as the coughing seemed to have eased. Yet it was short-lived as he saw the few droplets of red tainting the hand he had used to cover his mouth. He gave him a glass of water in hopes it'd help soothe his throat. Step by step, where and how were you injured? Kita took a few shaky breaths, but nodded. He took a few sips of the water, staving off another cough. I was punched to the cheek. It caused a small wound on the inside of my mouth to open, and... He cleaned his hand with the tissue as he spoke before hesitantly lifting his shirt. Aran fought hard not to let his anger overpower him as what lay exposed under it. His ribs to both sides were badly bruised. It looked like an abstract artwork of ugly paint splatters had tainted the skin in various tones of red, blue, and purple. His own breathing shortened as he took in the full extent of his injuries, eyes flying to the blood on the tissue again. He took a deep breath, condensing all his anger and worry into a single focus point. Okay. Alright, here's what we'll do next. I'll bring the first aid kit up to Kiyomi and Sumu. Then I'll bring you to the hospital. You may very well be right to assume the blood to stem from the cut on your cheek, but we can't risk it being a broken rib that punctured your lung. Further, should your Atsumu want to press charges, the report would be solid evidence. Is that okay? Kita had followed his words attentively, slowly nodding. He was visibly dissatisfied having to leave again, and Aran too didn't like the idea of separating from the other two at such a moment, but he trusted Kiyomi to keep Atsumu safe, and hoped that Kita was right, in which case it shouldn't take too long. His heart clenched once more as he saw the tears beginning to assemble in Kita's eyes, and he wondered how much more of this he could take. Seeing his boyfriend suffer like this made him feel helpless and torn. You're right. Please help me. The ace's tears closed over, and he took him into his arms gently, as though he was made from the finest glass, pressing a kiss to his temple. Of course. Always. Sakusa was rubbing soothing circles absent-mindedly into Atsumu's back while waiting tensely for Aran and Kita to join them. He couldn't rest not knowing what happened or whether Shinsuke was okay. However, when Aran re-entered the room, he was alone, handing him the first aid kit and placing 2 teacups on the nightstand. What happened? Shinsuke, he's injured too. His ribs are badly bruised, and when he coughed, there was blood. It likely stemmed from an injury in his mouth, but we're not taking the risk. I'm bringing him to a hospital for hopefully an x-ray and further evaluation, just to make sure. Sakusa's jaw set even tighter, and he nodded, fighting the upcoming nausea. Who the fuck dared do this to them? And why? Take care of Shin. Aran gave a shaky yet genuine smile. Take care of Tsumu. His gaze fell down to the setter, who appeared to be only half present. Silent tears was declaiming his face, but it looked like he wanted to say something, his eyes wide with worry. Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to him. He'll be alright. All of us will be. He pressed a kiss to Atsumu's forehead, who briefly chased after the touch before letting go again, his hand holding onto Sakusa's tightly as he watched Aran leave. Once they were alone, the sound of the front door shutting closed still ringing in the silence, Sakusa tried to sit up slowly. Atsumu next to him hid his face against his side and neck and refused to let go of him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so useless and stupid. The ace was quick to cup his cheek, shaking his head. You are none of those things. You are hurt and scared, and everyone who thinks that's unreasonable is the true idiot. Gently, his thumb traced the slowly swelling mark on his cheek, and he reached for the first aid kit to get a cooling compress. As he started preparing it, cracking it to start the chemical reaction that would make it freeze, and wrapping it in some cloth, the raven asked carefully, Was it him? Atsumu shook his head, and Sakusa believed him. He had seen the flashbacks that an encounter from afar could invoke. He didn't want to know the consequences of a direct confrontation on the setter. Still, he was holding it together surprisingly well given his history. It was hard to believe that the blonde considered this failing, let alone being useless. He gently pressed the compress to Atsumu's cheek and instructed him to hold it there while he got him a glass of water to swallow the painkillers with. The short distance to the bathroom had his heart racing, and true to his expectations, Atsumu was a lot more tense and trembling again when he returned. He couldn't leave the setter alone right now. I'm sorry. You know I can't accept that, since you have nothing to apologize for. But Shin, he protected me. I didn't step in until he was already on the ground. He needs to go to the hospital because of me. Sakusa shook his head, pressing the pills into the palm of his right hand and the glass of water in the other, instructing him to swallow. He needs to go to the hospital because of whoever beat you. To protect you was his choice, and you didn't force him to do it. Just like you stepping in, no matter when, was your choice. You made it out alive. You survived, no matter how. That is all anyone could have asked of you under such circumstances. And I'm so glad you did. None of this was either of your faults. He took a deep breath, resting his forehead against Atsumu's, begging him silently to believe him even if his trauma-conditioned brain couldn't understand. He spiked my drink. That's when it went downhill. What? Sakusa stared at him wide-eyed, searching his face and body for any effects of the drug. I didn't drink it. Shinsuke saw and pulled me away, warning me. The bastard overheard and took offense to the accusation. I'm not sure much would have come from it, but he was angry enough to raise his hand against us without warning. They didn't throw him out? Was nobody there to intervene? They did. He only landed one punch. Atsumu was quick to placate him, and Sakusa noticed his mistake immediately, as if dunked in cold water. He took a deep breath to calm down before motioning for Atsumu to continue. He gulped, and shivers hunted down his spine anew. You don't have to explain if you're not ready, Shin said. No, he has it worse. I can... As he got choked up, the slight distortion in his voice became more apparent, and Sakusa's gaze flew to his throat again, his own tightening in sympathy. Sumo, your throat. Maybe you should rest your voice. The tea should have cooled. He followed us. After he was thrown out, he must have waited and followed us when we left. He waited for a dark alley and just... He grabbed Shin, and it happened so fast, and I couldn't... I don't know how much time passed. Everything just went blank for me, and then... His breathing accelerated, and he had dropped the compress, which Sakusa now quickly picked up and pressed to his face again. I was back there. For just a moment, I was back with... His voice grew thinner with every word, and he looked down, tears falling onto his hands. I didn't mean to. I swear, when I came to, Shinsuke was already on the ground, and he was beating him, and all I could think to do was grab his arm, but then he punched me before grabbing my throat. His fingers ghosted over the bruises, lining it like a collar and getting increasingly darker. Sakusa gulped, bringing down the compress to cool that area too. It caused Atsumu to flinch briefly, but also seemed to ground him. I couldn't breathe. I was so scared. He did that before, and I read most who get killed by their partner were choked before. Sakusa froze. That sounded familiar, but he had never considered, even given everything he knew, that Atsumu was lucky to have survived back then. Today, given the premise of a stranger attacking them in a dark alley, death had seemed like such a bigger threat, but in reality, Atsumu was right. If his ex had choked him, his chances hadn't been good. He didn't know. Atsumu understandably never talked about it, so Sakusa was left to puzzle pieces together as they were given to him, but this was the most frightening one yet. He can't imagine what Atsumu must feel being put back into that position. Wordlessly, but infinitely more careful, he closed his arms around him, always on alert for any warning signs, but the setter let himself fall into his embrace and suddenly began to sob harder than throughout the whole evening. His cries were distorted by the injury, making the pain in his voice all the more visceral. They remained like this until eventually the blonde had cried all the tears he had left to cry, exhausting himself, and curled into as small of a ball as he could against Sakusa's side. The taller lean propped up against the pillows and headboard and began slowly feeding him the tea in small sips, hoping it'd help with his throat and keep the regret over his rightful tears come the next day to a minimal. I love you, Atsumu. You're safe now. Rest. He mumbled something incoherent about wanting to wait for Shinsuke, but his eyes fell shut already. Who could blame him? Sakusa proceeded to draw soothing patterns into his skin and began humming a low, soothing melody to coax him to follow his body's need for rest. Thank you so much for watching to the end and for still sticking around after my rather long break throughout January. My apologies, exams were in fact killing me. And yeah, we returned with a more serious video. I hope you enjoyed it. A little on a more serious note, what I incorporated into this video with like choking being a serious warning sign, that is true. Choking, most people who do end up getting unalived by their partners have been non-consensually, obviously, choked before in the relationship. So that is a serious warning sign, and if you're experiencing this, please be aware of it. Make sure that you're safe. And yeah, I feel bad transitioning into this, but special thanks to my nerdy neckos for supporting this channel. Here on my other social media. Everyone out there, make sure you're safe, healthy, and I hope you all and wish you all the absolute best. Next part will hopefully come soon, and now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day. Bye everyone! Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.